So welcome to Waterfront Academy's Montessori Conversations with Melissa Rohan, a podcast where we explore education, community, and the people shaping the future of learning. Today, I'm honored to welcome a true leader in the Montessori world, Kathy Minardi, Executive Director of Whole School Leadership Institute. Kathy has dedicated her career to guiding Montessori educators and school leaders around the world. She spent decades leading Aidan Montessori School right here in Washington, D.C. And now she's helping schools everywhere cultivate leadership that's rooted in authenticity, community, and purpose. Kathy, thank you so much for being here today. It's truly an honor of mine.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so pleased to be with you. You're such a important partner in all our work, and it's just great to see you again, Melissa.
Oh, yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and just jump right in. Um, so we got to know each other. We met before, but we really got to know each other through the Whole School Leadership Institute. And I do want to, before actually we start into these questions, I do want to plug what you're doing. So the leadership, it's 6 modules. It takes about 2 years to complete, and it is phenomenal. So I want to put a plug in that, but also what you're doing new this year is starting in November. So can you talk a little bit about signing up for that and then the new thing that's starting in a couple weeks?
Yes. So wholeschoolleadership.org is our, connection, and you can contact me at Kathy@wholeschoolleadership.org. So if you need help registering for these events, I'm so happy to do that with you. January 6th on Tuesdays is the launch of a new cohort starting our 6 module course. And that it does take close to 2 years, because after one module, which is 9 sessions, we stop and spend some couple of months reading and preparing for the next module. So there's a break in between each module, 2 or 3 months. And that's because you need to have soak time to try things out and to prepare for the next module. So it takes time over that period, and it's really worth it to do it that way. So that's our whole course, our 6 module course. And it focuses on the adults, the staff, and the parents, because if there's a toxic environment, and the children will feel it. It's so important that we spend time on ourselves and building a trusting and safe and sense of belonging place for people to work. So that's the effort that we've brought to Montessori. It didn't exist before. So we're really making sure that we have that covered. And then module 3 is on culture, on building the culture that will allow people to really grow and develop as adults and also serve the children in ways that we need. And we decided that it's so valuable in and of itself. And our first focus is on the dignity model, which is so valuable to Montessorians, that we are going to do module 3 for the cohort that's in it, but we're also launching it for anyone else who's welcome to come and join just that 9-week session. So we start November 20th on Thursday evenings, 7 to 9 at night. We skip Thanksgiving and the holidays and the New Year's. So it takes it into January, but it's 9 sessions, and you will get just absolutely the most incredible training and understanding of the how-to of creating a culture that you need in your school. So that we're doing that kind of like extra, because there's so much interest now in the dignity model and dignity movement.
I think you're right on that. I think that like everybody needs that in their life just to feel a little bit fuller. I remember diving into that module and just how excited I was because wonderfully articulated a lot of thoughts that I was already having,
Yeah.
but it also reframed my mind a little bit so that I can not only just have the thoughts and on the thoughts, but also implement this inner community. And I think that's really important.
There's so much on the internet about having this culture, all the labels, sense of belonging and trust and safety and all of that, but there's no how to.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you do that? So that's what that module is all about. Yeah.
I know it needs we take it from the theoretical to the reality, right?
Right.
So with that, can you talk a little bit about what brought you to Montessori to begin with?
Yeah. The origin story. So
The
many people
origin
ask
story.
that. Yeah. So I always share that um, I was born just before World War II ended, and that had a big impact on my family. My father was in World War II and came back when the war ended, and I had been born. And he chose a house in the country outside of St. Paul, Minnesota. 3 homes on a dirt road out in the country with cows across the street. It was very rural. It's now all suburbs, but there you go. And for one thing, there was an elementary school within about a mile of our home, and I could walk to it. They gave me that freedom to walk to the school, and it was a one-room schoolhouse. And it had children 6 through 12 years old all together in one room in a country one-room schoolhouse.
Yeah.
And it wasn't Montessori at that time, but it was in me to understand how children at mixed age groups work together, because I lived through that for all those years. So that was a gift. And
Yeah.
then when I went to college, that's part of the beginning of Montessori. Um, my college in Minnesota decided to change the pattern of the year to what's called 414. So you took 4 courses in your major, then you took one course that you could actually go abroad and do in another country if you wanted to, and then back to 4. So my one interest was in finding out about education in another part of the world. And I happened to have from 7 years old a pen pal in London that I had been writing to, and she was a little older than me. She had already become a teacher, and I was a major in education. And my professor of education said, why don't you go to Great Britain, to UK, and go to London and study the various alternative forms of education that are rising up now in that part of the world. And he was very interested in it because he was finishing his PhD thesis, and it was on that topic.
Mhm.
So
Wow.
he helped me to build the research.
Yeah.
And so I went to London. I stayed with my wonderful person we had been writing to since we were very little girls. She was already teaching in a school, and I began looking at alternative forms of education in that area. And the first place I walked into was the Maria Montessori Institute.
Really? Wow.
It was considered alternative back then,
Well, yeah, it was.
and one of the first in Europe. And at that point in time, I met Hila Patel, who was one of the trainers, and she had come from India. She's so famous. Hila Patel changed my life, got me very interested in Montessori, and realized that once I finished college, I could go on to the training,
Mhm.
which I did. I went to Washington, D.C. and trained with Margaret Stevenson. And
Oh,
and so
wow.
those were all what you would call, I'm old, so these are the early days, the very early days. And what was so, it's just such a incredible place for my heart was that in 2017, if you remember, we had the Montessori World Congress in Prague.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And I was at the hotel across from where the big conference was, and there was this walking bridge that could take you across to the conference center.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm walking across the bridge early in the morning to go to the keynote at the beginning. And who's walking beside me? Hila Patel.
Oh my goodness.
I had not seen her since the 60s, since I was in the
What a full circle.
and she was still alive. She passed away soon after that, I think. But oh my gosh, it was just incredible.
Oh.
Yeah, it brought it all back together. And so that's kind of my origin story. Ending up at Aidan Montessori School for such a long time in Washington, D.C., I would look out the third floor window where we had our library and see the townhouse 2 doors up. There were townhouses up that street on Woodley
Mm-hmm.
Road. And you could see the window where Margaret Stevenson lived.
No kidding. I didn't know that. Oh,
She
that's
lived there.
interesting.
Yeah, when she
Oh,
ran the Washington Montessori Institute. Yes.
yeah. Yeah. No, I knew that. Yeah.
Many connections. Yes.
Wow. So actually, I'm glad you brought up Aiden because I wanted to ask you a little bit because I think that's kind of where the leadership bug hit you. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but that's my impression. And so I wanted you to kind of talk a little bit about your experience at Aiden and then like how that transition happened for you.
Yeah. Well, try to make the story short. I founded and ran a school in Florida before I came to DC. And during I was there, I founded it and built it, and it was for 20 years. I ran that school. And during that time, in 1984, we lost a little boy in our school to the National Baseball League. And he was playing baseball on the weekends, and it was a Sunday afternoon, and he was hit in the heart by the pitch ball, and it stopped his heart, and he died. And
Ugh.
he was 9 years old. He was in our school, and we were faced with this enormous grief and loss. And what was so interesting is that people came from all over Florida to help us with that grief and loss, including a group of nuns who had worked and trained with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, the expert in grief and loss. And
Yeah.
they were with us for a whole year, helping our staff through that journey. And during that time, I noticed that I was good at managing a school, but I didn't know how to lead. I had no idea. And there was nothing offered to us in Montessori schools back then. There was no administrative training. And about halfway through the year, I noticed that the community had risen up on its own and taken its own agency to start things, to connect with things, helping to serve people in need in our school. And I asked myself, it was a Saturday, I asked myself, could we be like this without a tragedy?
Yeah.
And that day I got a brochure in the mail, and the brochure was an invitation by the university to come to a week-long training for executives in the science of community building. And so I went to it, and I was the only educator. They were all big business people, a couple of them running Catholic healthcare systems and
Yeah.
others,
Okay.
all these important executives. And at the end of it, we had built community, we had learned the science, and we decided to stay together. And so that group of 14 people met 3 times a year for 16 years.
Wow.
And during that time, we do a fly-in, and we'd all then locate at a conference center and get to be together. They decided to take me under their wing because they had trained at Harvard, Yale, MIT, Georgetown, they started sending me to organizational development training. They said, Kathy, you should go do this. Kathy, you should go do that. And behind the scenes in my school, I did that. I trained for 30 years in leadership. And I was then going to stop running my school and start Whole School Leadership Institute. I was already in Whole School Leadership Management with David Kahn at NAMTA. And I knew management is one thing, but leadership is just a whole other understanding of leading a school. And I was ready to do that. My husband had a very terrible automobile accident. He was hit by a drunk driver and he ended up hospitalized for a year. And he was going to keep us going while I started this institute. And so instead, I put my hat in the ring for another job. I'd already left my school, and Aidan Montessori School hired me in Washington, D.C. So we moved to Washington, and I started the next leg of my work for 20 years, almost 20 years at Aidan. And then finally, I retired in 2016 and launched Whole School Leadership Institute.
Wow, I really didn't realize how circuitous this route was for you.
But
This
I
is
was
pretty
so ready. Yes.
well, that was actually where I met you, was at one of the NAMTA meetings with David Kahn. I want to say it was 2016 or 2017, something like that. It would have been.
We were just ending. Yes.
Yeah.
NAMTA was closing that endeavor, and then NAMTA ended. And so the people that are on my training team, we were all part of Whole School Management. And so we transitioned into this, and I wrote the course because I was totally ready to write the course. Plus, I had come to DC where I had done additional training that was probably life-changing. The whole work in family systems theory was a gift beyond belief. So there was a reason why I wasn't going to do this for another 20 years.
You make plans, right? And then you just have to kind of go with it.
Yeah, and we also, Aidan was included in Dr. Mark Brackett's Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence work. He wanted us to pilot things because he was very interested in Montessori growing into this work. So we piloted for Yale. So those things wouldn't have happened if I had not gone on to Aidan.
Well, I love this part of the story. I really had no idea. I will say, as the consumer of all of your work, I mean, I literally right here on my bookshelf that you can't see, I have those books, and I reference those books from 2016, 2017. And I remember, it must have been last year or 2 years ago, there was somebody who was like, hey, is there extra copies of these books somewhere? Because and I'm like, I'm not giving you mine, right? Like,
I'm so marked up you can hardly read them.
So I do have that work. And then when I, started the Whole School Leadership, it was very exciting for me. And just the wealth of knowledge, not only from you, but from everybody that's on your team. It's just, it's remarkable. And I know that Aidan here in DC, if anyone's in Washington, DC, they do know Aidan Montessori. And I know that has a lot to do from your leadership over those years. So it's a big tribute to you and your work and your dedication and passion.
I was so excited to help the school get off the ground as well, because it had gone through a very difficult time. Aidan was actually, when we had our 50th anniversary, I got an email from somebody in Chevy Chase who said, oh, I just want you to know I was part of the first board that launched Aidan Montessori School. It was called St. Aidan at the time, after the Irish saint who had a monastery and a library, and travelers would come through Ireland and want to stay there because of all the learning. And so Aidan had started in the building, which was the Women's Catholic College.
I didn't know this.
Invited Aidan to begin in 1961. And this woman wrote that in the late 50s, this group of people in Chevy Chase were in a book club, and they were reading all the books about learning, about education. And they come across Montessori's book, and they couldn't stop talking about it. And the book leader said, "Why don't you just start a Montessori school?" You won't stop talking about this. And they did. They formed it in 1961. And that building is now Howard University Law School building.
Okay.
And it was there for 2 years, and then the college folded. So then they had to find another place to be. And they moved to Military Road, and Aidan, they dropped the Saint, and they moved into a Jewish synagogue educational wing on Military Road, Temple Sinai.
Wow.
And they rented from the synagogue for 35 years. And finally, the synagogue said, "We want our educational wing back. You have to find another place." And so they looked and looked and looked, and finally they discovered that the building they're in now in Woodley Park had been a Catholic elementary school, and it had closed, and it was available to buy. So Aidan purchased it and moved over the summer of 60, maybe 67, 68. And after they moved in and had their back to school night, the head of school went home that evening. They had just opened, and she had a brain aneurysm and passed away. Her name is Marsha Donnelly, and in reverence to her, she was a beloved leader. And so they put the call out for a new head of school. And I was the one that interviewed and got the job. And I replaced Marsha at this time when the school had gone through enormous grief and loss. And I came in at a time when they had just got started in that location.
Wow.
So it was rebuilding. You know, they hadn't had a leader for almost a year. I came in July, and there was just a lot of trauma. So we were going to begin again building a community. So
That's a lot.
yeah, it was a lot, and it was incredible gift to be able to be the one that was there to do that work.
Wow. 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 So I'm gonna move on like that story. Yeah, it's just, I think that like, I would love to hear, a little bit more about the Whole School Leadership Institute. I want to hear, because now this is 6 years, is that right? 6, 7 years?
10 years. I
10
started privately
10 years.
in 2016, I launched 3 cohorts privately, LLC. And then in 2019, we got the grant of funding to be able to start the nonprofit.
Okay, and that's when I heard about it. It was in 2019. Okay, yeah, yeah. So, but you've had the honor to kind of have a pulse on what's going on across the world through this organization that you've created. Like, what are some of the things, the takeaways, the big takeaways that other Montessori schools can really learn about what's going on in the other schools, and what you've got your pulse on it. What are you seeing?
Yeah, well, it's interesting what I have been seeing just recently, and being able to, hear it resonate with the cohorts that we're leading now. I just got back from Prague, where we had launched in 2018 an incredible Montessori conference called Lead Montessori. We thought we were doing it just for the European Montessori leaders, but it turned out people came from every continent but Antarctica. So we just got back from reunion of this group of people after the pandemic. and we had in the room at Prague Montessori Institute 32 countries represented. 32 countries with Montessori leaders in the room, US and all around the world. And what I'm sharing with our cohorts right now is that all of these challenges that you're living with right now are literally all over the world. We are one together in the challenges that we are facing in Montessori schools. And so they include just I think, sizing it all up, I would say that just like you were describing some of your work, we have an era that is collapsing. And our work, our call is to design and move forward in the new era. And we have such guidance from Montessori because actually she was living in that same situation. And so knowing that a lot is falling away, some of it that we love, but much of it that we can let go of. And we have an opportunity now to design a whole new, what they call enlightenment.
Yeah, I like that. I like that term, the enlightenment. Yes.
A whole new enlightenment for humanity. And so we should not give up and not get depressed. But yes, the challenges are families that leave. In the US, states that are giving free preschool, but not elementary school, and people are leaving to go to the free thing. There's so many economic and social challenges that cause us to be resilient and work hard and keep on going with our people. And it seems as if one of the main focuses is sustaining relationships. It's not about just marketing per se, it's connecting with our people and deeply connecting with parents. And that's a challenge because when we're connecting with them, we don't have time for the children. And if we have time for the children, we don't have time for the parents. So it's a time of really sitting down with one another as a team and figuring out just how to work this through at a time when we have a great advantage in our form of education. And we're also getting some great feedback from the researchers on how successful Montessori is cognitively and emotionally and every other way. The research that's just come in is unbelievable.
Oh, I can't wait to see it. I'm excited. I love reading. I think you've learned that about me, that we share. We both love reading. It seems that we seem to read the same things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I'm really interested in seeing any of the new research that's coming out, because that was one of the things when I started the school. My mother is a Montessori teacher, and
Yes, I know.
and my father's the one that had read Dr. Montessori's work and shared it with my mom, so that's a really big part of my life story. And so when I was looking at schools for my children when they were born, I did the research, and the research at that point was new because the new studies were coming out. It probably would have been 5-6 years old at that point when my son was born. But you couldn't ignore the research, the new science, the new brain technology, the scanning technology, all the neuroscience. It was all very new at that point. And you just couldn't ignore how drastic the benefits were.
Yes, and there's even more now just coming out. Angeline Lillard's new research is just phenomenal. So
I posted about that in our blog. Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah, so I guess what I'm seeing, and we are seeing in our training group in our course, in meeting with various cohorts going through the course, is that it's a very challenging time, but it's also, we have many of the tools to work with it and to take advantage of this rising new era.
Yeah.
We have to know that that's out there, and there's so many new authors writing about it and founding practice and efforts toward it. Um, I get so many interesting emails from other parts of the world. For example, an individual in the Philippines who was hired by his state government to help run the high schools from the perspective of values education. And 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 it's a whole movement in parts of the world.
It has to be. It
Yes.
has to be. I think that like, I mean, I know you're seeing the numbers. I don't know how much you've looked into it, but like we have a dying youth. We have
Yeah.
less and less young people. And so,
Population
and
is reducing. Yes.
yeah, and they're not connecting. You know,
No.
the new generation, they're not connecting with each other, and it doesn't look good. And so that's one of the things that I'm talking to my own personal children, my daughter, my sons, is, you know, you have to use these skills and these tools and like be on the front, you know, don't wait. You have to like, because I want those wonderful things for them as well. And it's just it's I don't want to be like the scary person, like,
Oh,
but me as a mom, I am a little nervous about the future. But I think that you're right that there's a lot of beautiful things that being in a Montessori environment and being in the Montessori community, we don't have to worry as much. And so, actually, this is a great segue to my next question for you. What do you see in the future of Montessori?
well, I think evolving to meet the needs is so important, and knowing that we have such a pivotal area of meeting those needs in society. Um, Everybody's trying to make an effort to get the word out in so many different ways. Interestingly, there is one state in the United States where there's a lobbying group of Montessorians who have approached the legislature of their state. And the legislature is looking at ways to provide free education to children early childhood up through the years. And they are going to be starting to pass laws that will allow their state to send children to Montessori schools free.
Wow.
And so that's still confidential, but it's going to be announced soon, I think, as those laws are passed. I think doing that kind of work is so admirable because they figured out how to actually make it happen rather than just complaining that, oh, this is so terrible and nobody is coming to Montessori schools anymore. You have
Yeah.
to figure this out in society. We have to be actors of the needs of our humans in our society. And Montessori is one of the most incredible answers to our dilemmas.
I
Yeah, neurodiversity, all of the different ways that we know how to work with children in Montessori answers those questions of those needs.
Oh, it's a complete holistic, robust education for sure. I mean, you're not just talking about the academics, and of course the academics are extremely important, but it's the social emotional, it's the soft skills that it's everything, you know, for a successful adult, right? I mean, and it's so funny because sometimes I talk to parents about these skills and how important they are, and as I'm saying it, I'm like, I wish we could also teach the adults some of these skills. And there, it always elicits a chuckle, but you know, there's some truth.
Yeah, they're kind of backing off because they're so stressed and
I know.
anxiety is so high in society right now.
I
But
know.
what I see is Montessori humans having grown up in the environment, and now they're, of all the things they have that's most amazing is their agency.
Yeah.
They can get things done, they can do things. Last night in one of our modules in our a cohort we are meeting with on Wednesday evenings, one person shared that she shared a photo of opening a new branch of her school, a new building, and there's this man in a suit cutting a big red ribbon. the ribbon slicing. And I said, well, share the story. And she said, well, the 8-year-olds were excited about the new building and getting to move into it. And one of them asked their mother for the phone number to the mayor. And the child called the mayor and invited him to the ribbon cutting. And there it was. There was the picture of the mayor cutting the red ribbon.
I love that. I love that.
It's, it's that agency. This is what I did. Let me do it. And, not to brag about family, but to brag a little bit, my granddaughter started in Montessori at 14 months in Seattle. And she just turned 15 August 1st. And she is writing op-eds to the newspaper editor. And they are all about social stories of social need in our state. And the most recent one that I read is an op-ed on how at one point the government took away the ability for the Native Americans in the state of Washington to farm their salmon, which was their big need as a people, and moved to another part of the state where they weren't allowed to get salmon. And the state, there was a huge group that lobbied against it. And the reservation got its ability to farm salmon again. And she wrote this whole social political, she's 15. She wrote that.
I love that. I love that for so many reasons. And is this recent? Like, is this within?
It's just in the past 6 months. And
wow, because I know she came here to DC over the summer. So was it?
It was when she got back, and so I got a copy of it. It's just brilliantly written, but the fact that she was allowed to know that work, know the terrible bias that had existed and that the state had ended it and given back the land to the Native American indigenous people. She covered that story so well. And I thought, I'm so grateful that she has the ability to do that, interest to do that, but also that she was able to learn that horrendous bias. And it makes me so happy to know that my Montessori granddaughter was able to share that story so others knew.
I love all of this from like all the different levels. I'm like seeing it as like she's a 15-year-old and she's super into social justice. And I love it that she's a Montessori child. And so she knows how to do all the research. And I'm sure she's very elegant in her writing. And so she planned it all out and she wrote this. And then she knew to like send this to the paper. And I love this for so many reasons. It's not to take anything away, because I know that there's so much of her that is just so beautiful and powerful. But I mean, how much of that was also just supported by the fact that she was in a Montessori environment. And so she felt that agency, but and confidence that her voice is valued, because that was what Dr. Montessori talked about so often, was how valuable our children are to the future. I mean, that is the future. It's beautiful. Oh, I love that. I cannot wait to hear what her future, right?
Yes. I'm very excited about her future. And I see so many of our students who have gone through Montessori. They're able, even if they have neurodivergent hindrances, if we are working with them carefully, they actually rise and are able to really function in society and do well. And I just feel like it's just such a valuable gift that we are able to pass on to the next generation. Direct answer to that yet, but I think that whole school leadership is going to be able to grow further in its work. We have the interest of some organizations that are not Montessori looking into us, and so we're carefully weighing them. One of them is in New York City. There are actually a nonprofit that runs 12 schools for special disabilities children, and their principals want to take our course. So
That's
we're
interesting.
excited about that. So, we're looking at being able to share out further into the educational world and other areas as well. And one of the biggest interests that I have and that our team has and our board has is in the dignity model and the dignity movement. And I will mention that because Leading with Dignity by Dr. Donna Hicks is probably the most important book I've read in my life. And it has allowed me to adopt this dignity model. That was my keynote in Prague. And we're trying to spread the word as deeply as we can in this model. Interestingly, in the book, I have a note here of the introduction to the book that I want to read.
Yeah.
It's by John Nasbitt, and the quote is this: "The most exciting breakthroughs of the 21st century will not occur because of technology, but because of an expanding concept of what it means to be human." That is the statement
Profound.
of
Yeah.
our era and our work in the future. Yes. And I think Montessori meets that need.
And I'm assuming that that is going to be part of the November module, right?
To start with that, we're going to spend
Yeah.
some extra time on it now that we are building curriculum toward it. And the other news about that is that we've been doing this Leading with Dignity part of our cultural model for a number of years now, and connecting with Donna Hicks, who is the author, and she's at Harvard. She was our keynote speaker this summer that you came to at our retreat. And I've stayed closely connected to her. She's been a wonderful colleague and friend. And she contacted me this fall to say, "Oh my goodness, Kathy, I didn't realize that Global Dignity, which is a nonprofit, it's globaldignity.org. Go look it up. Global Dignity as a nonprofit is now having its 20th anniversary. And it was founded by Crown Prince Haakon of Norway 20 years ago and two of his colleagues. And because they wanted to create a nonprofit that would build toward peace for humanity across the world. It's in 80 countries, she said. And Kathy, it's not in the US. I just about died. And she said, "I'm going to introduce your Montessori world and you to Global Dignity Board." So we met with the board.
Okay.
Two of them came to the retreat, if you remember.
Yeah.
We met with the board. One is in the US, the president, John Osborne, and the rest are in Europe, the board members. And they are taking us on as a Montessori group holistically to become partners with Global Dignity.
I love that.
So we are joining it. And, beyond our own Montessori world, we can grow it out into the educational world as well. And what happens, Global Dignity board members say, is once you're doing it in the school, the parents start saying, "Oh, I want this in my workplace."
Right. Well,
So,
yeah, absolutely. They want it and that's the way it should be, right? I mean, that's
so
the idea.
it's launching a movement. Yes. And so we're going to be partners with Global Dignity, and we're working on getting our country chair to advocate for us. Donna had a suggestion for that. And we're just feeling like the dignity movement is so aligned with Montessori's work. We always hear about respect, but it's distinguished from you treat people respectfully in order to honor and protect their dignity, which is their birthright.
Mm-hmm.
So knowing that that's our birthright as human beings is so foundational to
It,
everything you do.
it's so true. I remember reading that book, um, and I read it over the weekend. It's not a terribly long book or complicated. I mean, it's a wonderful book and it reads very, very nicely. Um, and I just remember we met on Mondays and just being so excited to like talk about the book on the Monday because it meant so much to me. It was just such a great book. Like, and like as I said at the beginning of the hour, that like it for me it was so beautifully articulated a lot of the thoughts that I was already thinking, but it had strategies for implementation. And that's the important part, because the theoretical and being able to take it from up here down to the reality is just
Yeah.
as important as learning what dignity is the implementation of it.
That's exactly. And there's so much of that in the book. Interestingly, Global Dignity has October as their Global Dignity Month. And then on October 15th, that's their Worldwide Global Dignity Day.
Okay.
One of the schools near me, Montessori School nearby where I live, spent the 15th without classes, and they divided parents up into small groups, staff into small groups, and children, elementary children, into small groups. And they each worked on their definitions of how to enact the essential skills of dignity. There's 10 essential skills, if you remember.
Mm-hmm.
And they worked on creating their framework for how this should be to actually achieve these essential skills, or essential elements, they're called. And when they completed it, they wrote their dignity pledge as a whole group. The
I love that.
entire school did that together. It's just, oh, how breathtaking.
I could
And they'll,
imagine. What a special event.
yeah. So they'll go back and look at it and revisit it over time, but and initially the entire community created their first pledge to dignity.
And I'm sure it was done. It was such a, I'm guessing, I'm imagining that it was just a beautiful event full of love and joy for the whole community, for them to continue to grow. It's kind of going back to what you talked about. Is there a way to uplift the whole community without a tragedy?
Yes, exactly. That was my
Yeah, exactly. And so,
evolution of my life. Yes.
yeah, I think that that's wonderful. I think you're doing your life's work, and I think you're doing it beautifully. And I think you are positively affecting the world, not just a community, but the whole community, the whole world community. And I love hearing that we're branching out to outside of the Montessori community. I think that that is so needed. At the end of the day, obviously, I hope that families choose Montessori schools, but for whatever reason, there's not one locally, it's too expensive. I don't know, whatever the reason is, and they're not choosing a Montessori school. At the end of the day, I do hope that there is a lot of peace in those choices that parents have to make. And so it's incumbent on or important on the leadership to have all the tools needed to be able to provide that peace to those families. And so if you can affect that, that would be just what a
There's actually several people in Europe right now who have created Montessori in the home. And there's Montessori in the home, I think, in a few places in the US too. And those are online access to how do you bring this into your home if you're going to homeschool?
mhm.
Uh, or even if you're sending your children to schools that are not Montessori, but when they come home, they have this environment that will enable them to build their own choices and agency and build themselves as humans.
Yeah. I did a podcast about almost a month ago, and that was one of the things that the Catholic community is looking at, is like, how are we going to reinvent or change the way that Catholic education is. And that's one of the big things is homeschooling is definitely one of the big things. And the schools, as I was talking to the AMI representative, and she had said that even the Montessori schools are changing the way that they are operating and functioning. And so we're seeing a lot of these changes all over the places. And I think that as a Montessorian, you're good at adapting to and resiliency. So I think that we're doing our work, we're doing our job. So I think that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So with that, Kathy, thank you so much for sharing your time and your wisdom and heart with us today. Your work continues to inspire educators and families alike, reminding us that leadership in Montessori isn't just about running a school, but about nurturing the living, breathing community. As you said, it's an organism, right? And thanks for our listeners. You can learn more about Kathy's work, and I'm going to put all of these links in the show notes, but you can learn about her work at the Whole School Leadership Institute at wholeschoolleadership.org, as she mentioned. And thank you for tuning in to Waterfront Academy's Montessori Conversations. And if you enjoyed this episode, please follow or subscribe and share it with someone who believes in the power of purposeful education. Until next time, I'm Melissa Rohan, reminding you to lead with grace, learn with curiosity, and nurture with love.